One phone call, that's all it took to threaten everything I had worked 10 years to build. On my very first night in my dream lake house, my brother called and his voice dripped with arrogant confidence. "We're moving in tomorrow," he announced. "Dad approved it. If you don't like it, live somewhere else." He truly believed that as the family's golden child, he could simply seize my hard-earned property. My hands trembled with rage, but I didn't shed a single tear. Instead, I smiled into the receiver and began preparing a welcome they would never forget. By morning, the locks were completely changed, and 2 police officers were waiting at the driveway gates. Before I tell you how their smug smiles turned to absolute horror, follow my story until the end and comment the city you're watching from, so I can see how far my story has reached. They thought they could steal my peace, but I was about to expose a devastating family secret. My name is Olivia. I am 33 years old, and until recently my life was a blur of 80-hour work weeks, cold coffee, and a ruthless corporate ladder that nearly broke my spirit. I spent a decade sacrificing my youth, my relationships, and my health to save every single penny I could. My ultimate goal wasn't a fancy promotion or a luxury sports car, it was peace. A few weeks ago, I finally did it. I walked away from my soul-crushing job and bought my absolute dream lake house, a stunning secluded sanctuary nestled right against the water. This place was meant to be my ultimate recovery zone, a private haven where the loud, demanding noises of the world could finally fade away into the rustling trees. The title deed was pristine, featuring only one name in bold ink, mine. I had bought it completely independently without a single dime from my family. But on my very first night in paradise, as I sat on the back deck watching the sunset over the glassy water, the serenity was shattered. My phone buzzed. It was my brother, Leo. Without even asking how I was, his voice boomed through the speaker with that familiar, arrogant confidence. "Hey Olivia, just letting you know we're moving in tomorrow," he announced casually. "Dad approved it, we need the space. And honestly, you don't need all that property alone. If you don't like it, go live somewhere else." My blood ran cold as the realization hit me. My family didn't want a vacation spot. They were planning a hostile takeover. To fully understand how Leo could make such an outrageous claim, you have to understand the toxic dynamic I grew up with. For as long as I can remember, Leo was the undisputed golden child of the family. He was financially reckless to a fault, constantly launching half-baked business ideas that inevitably ran into the ground. Every single time he failed, my parents were right there to bail him out, even going so far as to secretly drain my childhood college savings account just to keep his sinking ships afloat. Our parents viewed me strictly as a reliable financial safety net, the practical, hardworking daughter whose sole purpose was to bail the family out of trouble. Leo, on the other hand, was treated like royalty, the precious bloodline heir who was entitled to the very best of everything, regardless of who paid for it. As I stood in my beautifully quiet kitchen, staring blankly at the blinking lights of my phone, the sickening reality of his words began to sink in. They weren't just looking for a temporary place to stay, and this wasn't a casual family visit. Leo had clearly run into another massive financial disaster, and he had successfully convinced my enabling parents that my hard-earned sanctuary was the perfect cost-free solution to his problems. They genuinely believed that because they were family, they had a blank check to walk right in, push me to the side, and displace me from my own life completely. A heavy, suffocating tension settled over the room, but instead of screaming or crying, a strange wave of icy clarity washed over me. I wasn't that helpless little girl anymore, and I certainly wasn't going to let them steal the peace I had nearly destroyed myself to build. The moment I hung up on Leo, I immediately called my real estate attorney, Sarah, right at her home. I needed absolute, unshakable reassurance. She pulled up the digital files within minutes and confirmed exactly what I already knew. The deed was 100% pristine, carrying only my name, and my father possessed absolutely zero legal claim or authority over the property. With the legal boundaries firmly established, I went straight to work designing a counter strategy. I contacted a 24-hour emergency locksmith service, offering a premium rate to have them at the house within the hour. By midnight, every single external lock on the property had been stripped out and replaced with heavy-duty, commercial-grade digital deadbolts. Next, I activated the high-definition security system I'd installed earlier, ensuring every angle of the wrapping driveway was visible right from my smartphone. My final call of the night was to the local sheriff's department. I calmly explained the situation, reporting a highly anticipated civil disturbance and an explicit trespassing threat from hostile individuals arriving the next morning. I was no longer playing the victim. I was setting a flawless legal trap. The next morning arrived with a crisp, mocking brightness. I didn't sleep a single wink, spending the dawn hours nursing a hot mug of tea while watching the main security feed on my phone. At exactly 8 o'clock, the quiet gravel road began to rumble. I stood by the second-story window, pulling the curtains back just enough to see a massive yellow moving truck rumble up the winding driveway, closely followed by my parents' shiny luxury SUV. They hadn't even given me a chance to respond. They had simply packed up their entire lives and assumed I would submissively bow down to their demands. The vehicles came to a halt, and Leo hopped out of the driver's seat of the truck, looking completely smug and victorious. He stretched his arms, wore a confident grin, and grabbed a heavy cardboard box of his belongings from the back. My parents climbed out of their SUV, nodding approvingly at the beautiful lake views, already acting like they owned the place. Leo marched right up to the front porch with the swagger of a conqueror. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a copy of the old key, one he had secretly stolen right out of my purse weeks ago during a family dinner. He shoved it into the lock and twisted, expecting the door to swing wide open. Instead, the key completely jammed. The smug smile froze instantly on his face as he realized the cylinder wouldn't turn. It was a glorious moment of pure confusion as they all stared at the brand new digital deadbolts. The confrontation reached a boiling point in a matter of seconds. Realizing his stolen key was completely useless, Leo's face twisted into an ugly mask of pure rage. He began slamming his heavy fists against the solid wood door, screaming at the top of his lungs for me to open up, while my father's booming voice echoed across the quiet porch, yelling that I was an ungrateful, selfish daughter who was ruining the family. They genuinely thought their aggressive shouting would intimidate me into submission. But right on cue, the high-pitched wail of sirens cut through their screaming, as two local police cruisers roared up the winding driveway, expertly parking to completely block the massive moving truck. Leo's posture changed instantly. He tried to play the ultimate victim, smoothing down his shirt and confidently walking over to the officers. He loudly claimed that I was experiencing a mental breakdown and was illegally locking them out of a family-owned property. To my absolute shock, my father stepped forward and proudly produced an official-looking piece of paper from his jacket pocket. He handed it to the primary officer with a smug, self-satisfied grin. It was a blatantly forged property deed, crudely altered to claim that he owned a 50% legal stake in my lake house. They had actually documented their own fraud in writing, completely unaware that this was the exact trap I had laid out for them. They thought the law would force me out, but they had just handed the police the evidence needed to destroy themselves. I stepped out onto the front porch, calmly holding my smartphone tightly in my hand. My real estate attorney, Sarah, was already live on speakerphone, her voice crisp and authoritative as it echoed across the tense driveway. I reached into my folder and pulled out the original certified county property deeds, clearly stamped by the state registry. Not only did I instantly prove that the ridiculous paper my father held was a crude, pathetic forgery, but Sarah was about to drop a massive, devastating secret that blew the entire situation wide open. Through the clear speakerphone, Sarah revealed that during her emergency title search the previous night, she had uncovered something shocking. Leo hadn't just targeted me. He had recently used our father's personal identity and stolen financial information to forge multiple fraudulent bank loans to cover his escalating underground gambling debts. This sudden, aggressive move into my lake house wasn't a family bonding plan at all. It was a desperate, illegal attempt by Leo to shield physical assets and hide from aggressive corporate predators who were closing in on him. Confronted with immediate arrest for criminal trespassing, grand larceny, and felony document forgery, the illusion of family unity shattered right before our eyes. My mother gasped in absolute horror, turning on Leo in real time, while my father threw his hands up, screaming at his favorite son for ruining their lives. The officers stepped forward, unfolding their handcuffs as the golden child's face drained of all color, completely trapped by his own greed. The police officers gave Leo and my parents a final, brutal ultimatum: pack up their things and leave the property immediately, or face getting booked into the county jail right then and there. Seeing the flashing red and blue lights, they finally realized their game was completely over. They slowly climbed back into their vehicles and drove down the winding driveway, defeated and humiliated. I refused to drop the official police report for the forged deed, forcing Leo to finally face the legal and financial accountability he had spent his entire life running away from. Cut to 3 months later. I am sitting on my beautiful back deck, listening to the gentle lapping of the water, completely no contact with my toxic family. My parents are currently buried under the crushing weight of Leo's financial ruin, forced to downsize their own home to pay off his mounting debts. But as I look out over the glassy lake, I feel no guilt, only a profound sense of relief. I finally have the peaceful life I always wanted, and I built it all on my own terms. What would you do if your own family tried to aggressively seize your dream home? Would you have called the police on your own blood, or would you have given in? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this journey, make sure to like, subscribe, and click on the next video on your screen for more jaw-dropping family drama. Thank you so much for watching until the very end.